John Howell.
Mr. Bates, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I'd also like to congratulate my honourable friend from Strangford for this important debate, and it's a great pleasure to participate in it. Can I leap in straight away, since we don't have very much time? And let me say that I too believe that President Buhari has not done enough to focus on this problem. He came to power with a radical agenda to get rid of Boko Haram, and he has been partially successful in that. But I think, as honourable members did point out, some of the Boko Haram insurgents have transformed into other terrorists within the country, and they may well be fueling this particular crisis. And I think that one of the things, since we last spoke in this chamber about this issue, one of the major things that has come out is the intensity of the problem and the intensity of the killings that are taking place. Now, it is always possible to blame the president for what happens in a country. But let's just remember that President Buhari is facing action in the International Criminal Court for what he has done against Boko Haram. That's quite a remarkable statement to understand, but he is necessarily facing action there. So it's not surprising that his focus has been elsewhere. And as the honourable member opposite pointed out, the real focus for Nigeria is not in the national administration; it's in the state governorships. And I would like to particularly to condemn the governor of Ekiti State, Mr. Fayose, who encouraged farmers to take up arms against the Fulani herdsmen. That is not a very helpful thing to have done. That is just increasing the tensions in the country. It is just increasing the actions that people are going to take. It's increasing the killing that is taking place there. And I think that we should make sure that we do condemn that. Now, President Buhari, when the recent killings took place, as I have said on a number of occasions in this chamber, was condemned in Parliament, was summoned to Parliament, and a no-confidence motion was put in respect of his advisers because they had done nothing to solve this problem. And President Buhari was also the first African leader to go to the White House, which he did in April 2018. And there, I'm afraid that President Trump's involvement in this was perhaps less than helpful. It was a rather simplistic judgment of the situation in Nigeria and didn't actually put pressure on President Buhari to take action in the country. And I do think we need to put that pressure on both the state governors and on the national government to be able to do something. But in terms of the national government, there is one thing that I think is a good solution to this, which is not to look on this solely as a military operation. I don't think that this is going to be solved by a military operation. It's going to be solved by political activism. And one of the things that I would draw your attention to in this political action is a bill that is before the Nigerian Parliament at the moment. And it's a bill called the National, it's actually in a shorthand form called the Land Grazing Bill. And it's a bill for national grazing reserves to be able to be set aside for the Fulani herdsmen to be able to use without the conflict that, of coming into contact with Christian farmers. And I think that we should support that and should support other actions that the Nigerian Parliament is taking to be able to solve this problem. The problem is a complex situation. It is wrong to just characterize this as a religious conflict. it certainly has strong religious elements and strong religious overtones to it. But this has been going on for many years, before Open Doors were involved, long before we became aware of that. This has been a conflict that has been going on. And you can see the fact that this is more than just a religious conflict by looking at the timings of the killings that occur. The timings of the killings increase around the time of national elections. And that is a very instructive point to bear in mind. So there is one thing that I have always in my mind when I carry out my work in Nigeria, and that is poverty. And I am absolutely committed to trying to help the Nigerian government improve the poverty situation of many of its people. I've explained on a number of occasions here that I think that is in our best interests in being able to prevent a mass migration of people from Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa across into Europe, but I think it is also in their best interests to be able to do that. And therefore we need to put pressure on the Nigerian government and on the state governors to be able to solve this problem in order to deal with the poverty issue, to deal with it firmly and to deal with it finally. Of course I could wait.
Result for giving way. With his knowledge of Nigeria, can I ask the honourable gentleman, has he any reason that he can see why the Nigerian government has either been reluctant, unable or unwilling to respond to this high levels of violence?
I think that's an interesting question, and I think that there is an ethnicity element to it. President Buhari comes from that particular area, is identified with the Fulani, and I'm not going to make that point stronger than I have. I don't know the extent to which that, that ethnic belonging influences him and his actions. But all I would say is that I agree that there has been less action taken than anyone would like to have seen in this area. And let me just conclude, since I'm almost running out of time. Let me just conclude by saying that we raise this question enormously. That I know the High Commission raises this issue very frequently with the Nigerian government. It is technically outside of my trade area, but when you have a country like Nigeria, you cannot be simply focused on one particular issue, since all of them interlock, all of them play a part and support each other. So on that note, I will continue to put pressure on the Nigerian government to make sure that something occurs that will resolve the situation.